that document, we end up with something called guardianship, which is probate court, which is nasty, so I'll just stop that part right there. But by far the most important document that you should have is your financial power of attorney or your durable power of attorney, because it allows someone to come in and help you. This was a big challenge for my father-in-law. My mother-in-law had MS, so when he had a surgery that did not go well, she disappeared for 3 days. Just gone because she couldn't handle it. And then we're sitting here and we couldn't make financial decisions, we couldn't access his bank accounts, we couldn't make healthcare decisions, and it was a mess. So having a document where you're nominating a spouse or someone that you trust and love first, and then having what I call base strength, so a few other people below that to make sure if there's a situation that's transpiring, we have people to help you, very, very important. The next document that takes care of you during your lifetime is something called a healthcare power of attorney, very similar to this durable financial power of attorney that we were talking about. And it allows someone to step in and make your healthcare decisions if you cannot, or you're unable or unwilling to make your own. I'm not quite as concerned about that document because the law does say if you can't do it yourself, it's your next of kin. So typically it's going to go to your spouse, then not to your spouse, then to your children. A lot of people take issue with that, so just know who you have as next of kin, and that'll drive that decision on whether you feel that you need a healthcare power of attorney. But I do recommend getting them for everyone because we can get their names, their addresses, their phone numbers, and in the case of a medical emergency, we know exactly who to contact and how. The third document that takes care of you during your lifetime is something called a living will, also sometimes called an advance directive. It says if you're ever permanently incapacitated in a vegetative state, essentially with no chance of ever regaining consciousness, they're going to allow you to be removed, or really require you to be removed from life support, from any types of IVs, feeding tubes, and provide you something called comfort care, which is pain medication so that you can pass on your own. And then the final document is something called HIPAA. It's just a release of your medical information. As we get older, I know that I'm only 49 and I get confused about my doctor's appointments and where I need to be all the time, and my wife bails me out constantly. So that's a document where your children or whoever you name in that document can call your physicians, they can call your pharmacies, and they can just get information about what's going on with your care. So those documents are more important than anything else that we talk about, in my opinion, because you're more important than your stuff. The next bucket is how do we handle your stuff. This is where we get into last wills and testaments. Just know that if we're relying on a last will and testament, that means you passed away without telling anyone where your stuff was supposed to go, so it ended up in court. And then that last will and testament is simply used as evidence in that case to say where your money is going to go. It's expensive. You're going to pay a guy like me about 5% of everything that goes through that court process. It takes 6 months. Everything's completely public. You can go out to Hamilton County and see everybody's last will and testaments. You heard about Aretha Franklin and her estate and Prince and all these different people who passed away because they passed away without an estate plan. It all ended up in court, and now everybody knows about it. So that's what last will and testaments are used for. The easiest thing to do is start with joint ownership if you have a spouse. If not joint ownership on all of your assets, including your vehicles, then you can name beneficiaries, which are called PODs and TODs, if you've ever heard of those words. It's just payable on death or transferable on death. Just think of it as a beneficiary designation. You can go to every place, the B&B, you can talk to a lawyer about your house, you can go to the banks, any place that you have titled assets, you can name beneficiaries on. That avoids a last will and testament, it avoids court, it's fantastic. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about in this bucket are essentially trusts. So if you don't have joint ownership and you don't have beneficiaries and you don't want to end up in court, trusts are a great tool. Not to spend too much time on it, but there's 2 types of trusts. One is where we can avoid probate, and with that process we can also create all kinds of great contingencies that says, okay, I want to leave everything to my children, but if my child passes, I want to make sure that it's going to my grandchildren. But if it's going to my grandchildren and they're under 18, we don't want that to end up back in probate court and talking to a guy like me. So we would basically put this trust together that holds the money for that child until they're like 25. So trusts are all about contingency planning and probate avoidance. That's the second bucket. And the third bucket is elder law. What do we do to make sure that you're properly educated and aligned to be able to afford long-term care when that time comes? Or do we have a plan to make sure that we're getting you into the facility that makes sense? That's where we rely on a lot of these individuals here and making sure we understand where you're living and what your expectations are. We help our clients understand. I'm not a financial advisor. We work with the experts in making sure that happens, but we work with you to help you understand what you can potentially afford. We also do different types of trusts that protect your house. If you ever go into long-term care and run out of money, that's called Medicaid as opposed to Medicare. We do a lot with our clients to protect assets so that we don't have to utilize that money, like the house, and lose essentially our entire life savings. We can actually shift assets around to get qualified for Medicaid. It's not right for everybody. But long story short, we do no-cost consultations like most of the people here. We sit down for about an hour really learning your circumstances and guide you through what makes sense for you because everybody's different. I have some clients who come in They have some statutory forms that will do the job and beneficiary designations, and that's essentially all they need. I have other clients who are in their 40s and 50s and has children with special needs and other challenges where we actually may put multiple trusts together. So anyway, that's what we do. We take care of you during your lifetime. We handle your assets after you pass away, and we help you prepare for long-term care if it's ever necessary. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Shane Kugler, Kugler Law.